So this is the type of best of 5 series that I personally get really excited for. I'll explain to you why that is in just a little bit, but let's get started by introducing the players. Spawning here in the bottom right hand corner of Catalyst Alien, playing with the red Terran SCVs. He's from South Korea, easily one of the strongest Terran players on the planet right now. Of course, I am talking about none other than Gumiho. And his opponent spawning all the way in the top left hand corner. I won't deny it, I'm quickly becoming a bit of a fanboy of this man. He's 15 years old. He's from Italy, and he goes by the name of Reynor. So here's the thing. I've been casting quite a few games of Reynor, but in particular, I would say about a half year or so ago, he was definitely still struggling against some of the very best players on the planet, like for example his opponent in this particular game. However, in recent times, whenever I see him play, he seems to just be getting better and better and better very, very rapidly, much quicker than most of the other pro gamers out there. So I'm really excited to see how someone of the caliber of Reynor can go up against such an established professional gamer like, for example, Gumiho, because there's no denying that he's got a very tough task ahead of him. I mean, Gumiho, of course, while he may get a little bit overshadowed by Maru and Innovation, he's definitely at a similar skill level. Last year in 2017, he ended up winning the GSL Code S, essentially the highest level tournament on the planet outside of maybe BlizzCon. So there's no denying that Gumiho is very, very, very strong. Now, I'm excited to check this out because I don't know exactly how good Reynor is going to be able to keep up against someone of Gumiho's caliber, but I guess only time will tell. So go ahead, grab yourself a drink if you don't have one already, because I've got a feeling that this is going to be a really good best of 5 series. Now, of course, in a best of 5, it is first to 3 points who wins, so this is only map number 1. Hatchery first here for Reynor. He's going to follow it up with a gas geyser as well as a spawning pool. Nothing out of the ordinary just yet. Gumiho also opening up very, very safely here, going for that Marine after scouting with a Reaper here too. This is just in case there's going to be a pool first. And even though Reynor isn't really known to go for pool first very often, it is, it is something you can do. It delays your Hellions by just a little bit, but it's so much safer just in case the Zerglings do roam the map. Because if you lose the SCV that's building the command center, life just becomes really painful when you are the Terran player. Now, Gumiho, he's one of those players that really popularized mech play, and one of the reasons why he became really good at playing those units is because he started incorporating the medevac while playing mech. Now, he's perfectly capable of playing bio as well. As a matter of fact, that seems to be the thing that he plays more often than not these days. But he really started dropping with Thors in the mid game very confidently as part of his standard build order. It wasn't anything cheesy, but medevacs with mech go together very, very nicely. Starport now coming up though, very classic 1-1-1 style, although he is going for that really greedy third command center before even throwing up the starport there. This is a more recent development in the TVZ matchup. I think that's mostly due to the fact that Zerg players have gotten so very good at just simply defending all of the different kinds of harassment that a Terran player can throw at them. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the Banshees won't really deal any damage, the Hellions won't really deal any damage. It's more or less meant to contain the Zerg player and maybe, slow down their creep spread rather than killing a lot of workers. And because of that, in order to stay ahead economically, a lot of Terran players now are opting to go for a little bit of a greedier build, because obviously you're gonna be in some trouble if your opponent gets really aggressive. But you could also go ahead and get that third command center and really, start boosting out those mules really early on into the game. Yeah, we now even see the Hellions being used defensively here for the time being, so that's exactly what I mean, right? Like, I mean, rather than just simply sending them across the map, he knows that his opponent has got it covered already. And because of that, he's just playing it super safe, just keeping these Hellions at home to make sure that he can continue pushing his own economy instead. It's almost a bit of like a gentleman's agreement, right? Because on paper, it doesn't really make sense to go for a really quick third hatchery. And on paper, the third CC here was definitely a little bit greedy. But just because they know that it's very difficult to kill the opponent in the early game, they sort of cut corners left and right and try to see who can outgreed each other without losing the game. Sometimes we see these kind of builds happening, and actually hold that thought. Ugh. Raven will now actually come out here as well. This is another recent development. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But it's pretty interesting to see players trying to sort of outgreed each other. And Gumiho now even going for the third base that is much less common. Huh, very interesting. Now, a couple of Zerglings made their way inside of that main base. They haven't seen the third CC. I think that Reynor realizes that something is not quite right, but here come the Hellions. Now, of course, Ravens can do an awful lot of damage with these auto turrets. Roaches spawning, though, just barely in the nick of time. Queen's trying to target fire down that Raven. It's already running very low, but so are the Queens. Looks like for now, the Roaches will be able to shoo away these Hellbats as well. No workers have really gone down just yet. Queen's running very low. They do get the final hit right there on, of course, that Raven. Ravens are very expensive. You don't really want to lose them. And even though 2 Queens there ended up dying, we saw 0 drone kills. Whoa, are you kidding? Okay, well, 1 drone kill, I guess. That is pretty crazy there. Considering that was a very small amount of Roaches there and only 2 Queens went down, that's a very nice advantage here for our Zerg player so far. Nicely done. Now, Reynor did get a Zergling into the main there, right? And he did scout around, and he realized, hey, wait a second, there's no third CC. I'm not seeing armories. I'm not really seeing any, for example, what are they called? Engineering base either. A couple of Hellions, once again, trying to sneak by. But he didn't see any engineering base either. I wonder if he's already assuming here that there might very well be another base out on the map somewhere for our Terran player. This one has completely been unscouted so far, though, and Gumiho is really happily mining with 3 mules at once. Yeah, it's actually forcing Zerg into a bit of a defensive posture. I think that Reynor may very well assume here that something aggressive might be coming his way in just a bit. Regardless, we are seeing that mech transition, and here's another one of these cool things that Gumiho has been doing. He's going for a lot of these cyclones rather than siege tanks against small amounts of Roaches. I guess it is because of the fact that in small army compositions, cyclones just sort of kill everything. In the classic style of Mech, the one pre-Gumiho, I suppose, who really like popularized this medevac play, right? But in old school Mech style, we would really see Terran players focusing on siege tanks and Thors and Vikings, and is really slow, methodical pushing across the map. Instead, I mean, Gumiho really popularized what I would like to call like a battle mech kind of style with Cyclone, Hellion, Hellbat, and then obviously with medevac drops as a follow-up, there's a lot of potential to go for. Now, very passive here as well, though, by Reynor so far. This is one of the key characteristics of his style. He doesn't really play super aggressive in many of the games. Oftentimes, he's the one that's just simply defending, because he knows he's going to be strong in the mid-game. Now, I've made some arguments in the past talking about Reynor's late game. I wasn't all too impressed by that. Curious to see if we're going to be seeing some of that in this series as well, because I haven't really seen him play a ton of late game. Usually he seems to avoid that because the mid game is really where he shines. Now 1-1 is just about to finish up. 4 Cyclones currently boosting into that main base as well. Roach is already moving over there. You wouldn't really expect Cyclones at this point in the game. I'm assuming actually Reynor thinks that it's going to be Hellbats. But he will manage to deflect those here for the time being. Siege tanks spawning at the perfect moment. They will come out right as the Roaches are threatening that run by. So both players are reading each other very, very nicely. Once again, those Cyclones trying to get a little bit of an angle. Queen's now forced to shoot these down as well. A couple of Swarmos are now coming up here for our Zerg player. Very interesting. Roaches now moving forward. I think they will be forced back. Not a chance there against that mech-based force. So this is, I think, 12 Swarmos here in total. Swarmos have become a little bit more popular. We've seen all of the top-level Zergs actually now play them again. Oh my god, the pickup micro! He's pretending to be a Protoss with a War Prism. That is actually really sick. Huh. I love this. That's so cool. This is what I love about StarCraft, though. I mean, here's the thing, right? Even when the game doesn't really get any major balance patches, just because of the way that maps are played and players figure out strategies, there are so many varieties when it comes to strategies that are being developed, right? I mean, in Brood War, we didn't have patches for a very long time, and strategies were still changing continuously. I love this. So a battle mech kind of style against Swarmos here as well, and all of the siege tanks have currently been rerouted towards that third base location. They may actually go for a bit of a move out. Couple of Locusts now trying to get a bit of an angle in as well. They will try and target fire down whatever. The Locusts do end up timing out there, but of course, the amount of Hellions and Hellbats here available already, it's very menacing. Blue Flame started up immediately as well upon seeing that there were some Swarmhosts out, and of course, they're going to be very good at cleaning up this Swarmhost-based force. Here we go, though. Big push here coming up for Gumiho. He doesn't have any anti-air whatsoever. Finally going for a few Vikings. Locusts are off cooldown once again. Siege Tank's not sieging up here on purpose. He knows he needs to be very careful. Beautiful scan though. Will confirm exactly where that army is located. But here we go. The Zerg is now raining biles on top of all of those units. It looks like Zerg may very well be cleaned up here. But the thing is, Gumiho's army is far less replaceable. Still, we see a lot of units going down, of course, for our Zerg player as well. There are still Swarm Hosts waiting for their Locust cooldown once again. A couple of Siege Tanks now reinforcing these units as well. And since, of course, Swarm Hosts don't have their own attack animation, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Hellions now making their way towards that third base location of the Zerg. Reynor's fourth already getting picked off. One of the Siege Tanks there does end up going down as well through a hit squad of those Roaches. And I think that eventually, even though a lot of drones are being cleaned up and all that, I do think eventually Zerg should be able to clean this up. Very scrappy engagement. I mean, both players are trying to out-micro each other. A fourth base has now been retaken here for Zerg on the left-hand side. Yeah, Zerg does manage to hold on there, but obviously he lost quite a few workers there as well. Although at this point in the game, you can quite easily remake them. Gotta be careful, you don't want to lose those Roaches and Ravagers for free. Wonderful move out there by Gumiho. Playing his own style, not copying, for example, Innovation, not really playing similar to for example, Maru either, really playing his own way. And that's one of the things. Like, if you show a player that watches a lot of StarCraft, or I guess a viewer of a lot of StarCraft, a game of a top-of-the-line Terran player, I mean, if you would have showed me this game, right, of a top-of-the-line Terran player, and I didn't know that it was Gumiho, just because of the way that he's playing, I could probably have guessed it was Gumiho. I mean, they all have such distinct playstyles. For Zerg, it's a little bit harder. Hellions now, though, making their way once again into that main base, now that the Roach Ravager army is distracted on the other side. Blue Flame has now been finished up as well, so they're going to be able to do a huge amount of damage to those worker lines. Locust now coming up. It looks like actually Reynor is looking for the kill. He is trying to split up a couple of those Locusts as well. Now tries to reroute them once again. And here we go. The Swarm Hosts are engaging. That means that these Siege Tanks are occupied. And that means that the Ravagers can rain their biles like no tomorrow. 20 drones, though, in the meantime, are going down. Liberators and Blue Flame Hellions still going to town. But that is at the cost of the majority of this Terran army. What a sick game number one already. Couple of Hellbats now going to town on that newly acquired fourth base here as well. Locust, of course, will come off cooldown in just a little bit. Liberators do end up getting one of those kills as well, and while another one ends up dying at the third base location, both players are taking heavy casualties. Gumiho so far though seems to be getting the upper hand in these kind of engagements. I think that's the end of those two Liberators, but all things considered, right, the thing is, Terran Mech needs to max out, and that's not happening right now, right? The Zerg army is far stronger in smaller numbers than the Terran army is, and these Locusts, they do not mess around. We see a lot of Swarm Hosts continuously sending their waves of units forward, and yeah, that does mean that even though Reynor ended up losing a ton of workers there, he was only sitting on 38. The amount of army left over for Gumiho was not big enough, and that means that Reynor wins game number one. Wonderful game number one there, actually, by both players. I thought that wasn't going in favor of Reynor there for a little while, but the thing is, Gumiho did throw away a lot of his units. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the battle mech style, but I feel like in the mid-game, you're kind of building up towards that maxed out, that maxed out Terran mech army. Playing this battle mech army and then throwing away a lot of units, I mean, it feels almost like a Zergy way to play mech, which is kind of a weird way to put it, but the way that Gumiho plays it, where he, does a lot of Liberator harass, he drops with Medivacs, he goes for the Cyclone play, he switches towards Hellbats in the mid game as well. You can't really throw away units and easily replenish them in the way that Zerg can, right? So it's cool when it deals a lot of damage. It did deal a lot of damage there in the late game, but I think that Gumiho, he ended up losing a little bit too much, and that means that he ended up losing the game just to the Zerg reinforcements. Now, this is the reason why you go for that single Marine after the Reaper. Pull first here from Reynor. What he's gonna try and do is send some Zerglings probably through the outskirts of the map to watch the other side of the map. While the Reaper is occupied on the other side, scouting and figuring out for the Terran army what is going on in the Zerg base, the Zerglings can swoop in, kill the SCV that's building the command center on the low ground, and at that point you are in a world of hurt if you are the Terran player. I mean, if you delay that command center as a Zerg, not only will you delay the Terran's economy, you will also actually supply block them. And that's the really tricky part, because Terran players require that base to finish up. So let's see. Gumiho, of course, did notice that it was a hatch first in the previous game. He could also just simply decide to stay there, or leave this Reaper rather at home. Pretty common these days too, to scout with an SCV and just leave the Reaper patrolling over there. But basically, you make the Marine initially. The Marine will shoo away the initial couple of Zerglings, and then the Reaper has some time to travel back and clean up those Zerglings before they can kill the command center. Obviously, this is all in theory, but Reynor is now moving across the map with 4 Zerglings already. Is there going to be a Marine follow-up? Yes, there is. Wonderful. This is a subtle difference. One of the subtle little things that a lot of pro gamers will do. Oh, and actually love this. Look at that. Gumiho now actually sending his Reaper. Oh, he's sending his Reaper at a bit of a weird angle, although it does get surrounded. Oh my god. The sickest Warcraft 3 micro there actually by Reynor. That's a big deal. That is not what you want to have happen. Second Marine immediately queued up. While the factory is coming up, it is not going to have a reactor anytime soon. Gumiho now even forced to pull an SCV off of the line just in case to fight these Zerglings off. He needs to finish up this command center. Zerglings now going to town though. They're trying their very best. Hold position micro on a couple of those SCVs as well. Wonderful play here by Gumiho, considering he did lose that Reaper for practically free. Zerglings now going after that single SCV. But all things considered, I actually thought this was going to go way worse for our Terran player here. That was wonderfully played. I mean, that's really quick surround though, right? Right over there. To make sure that that Reaper could not go anywhere. That has to be so very accurate. And obviously, considering a Reaper, I mean, Reapers, I'm pretty sure they get greased up in Vaseline. Or at least something slippery before they leave the command center. Or before they leave the barracks. Because it is really difficult to get this around on those units. I mean, a Zergling lifts up one leg. And somehow, some way, the Reaper will just slither its way out of that grasp. Apparently though, Gumiho did not quite have that happen there, and while he ended up losing the Reaper, and he doesn't really know anything about the Zerg player, just seeing the timing on those Zerglings gives him all the information that he needs. Now he does need to realize right now that there is a third command, or rather a third hatchery here for our Zerg. Third hatchery is a very important scout. He's probably going to actually cycle around and see if he can you know, see one of those third base locations. Now, we are currently on Lost and Found. This is one of the maps that recently got added to the map pool of StarCraft 2. At this point, he's a little bit in the dark, though, yeah. He's forced to go into that Reaper. Obviously, Reapers are great offensively, but they are very good against Ravager, Roach, all-ins as well. Doesn't look like that's going to be happening, though, here for Reynor. Playing this very safe and sound. Even having this one Overlord all the way over here. Right? Not on this pillar, not on that pillar. But all the way over on the other side. Now, does Gumiho know about the third base? Now, I guess even not seeing the third hatchery. I mean, even if you don't see the third hatchery, you can kind of sort of make the assumption that it is there when you see Zergling play from your opponent, just because of the amount of larva that it costs in order to see this happen. A Zergling now making its way across the map though. It will get shut down almost immediately, and Gumiho playing this slightly differently this time around, forced into that barracks, and then into the factory, and then of course into the starport before putting up the command center. So very, you know, different order I guess, but pretty similar outcome all things considered. Banshee Cloaking Field finishing up in just a few seconds. Spore Crawler isn't finished just yet. That does mean that this is definitely going to get quite a couple of kills. Units are falling right now very, very rapidly. Wonderful move here by Gumiho. He knew that he successfully distracted the Zerg player there for a little while, and while there are spores now coming up, that is 5 drone kills that he did not get, or make that 6 drone kills even, that he did not get in the previous game. Once again though, it does look like this is going to be a Roach transition here from our Zerg. Might actually be Swarm Host once again as well. I really did like the effectiveness of that unit in the previous game. Gumiho making that switch towards Terran Mech once more. Going for the armory. Well, it doesn't actually necessarily have to be Terran Mech, but judging by the fact that another factory is coming up, that is more than likely going to be the case. Beautiful scan there as well by Gumiho, getting rid of those tumors. And the Banshees, I mean, they're still going to town. Alera is not done yet, so that means no Overseers here for our Zerg. Queen already, well, taking a lot of damage here. The Cyclones as well. Very harassment-heavy army once again here by our Terran player. Great follow-up here, though, considering that early game or the first couple of minutes of this game, it really did not look great here for Gumiho, but he's microing this excellently. Getting so much value out of this army, bringing those Marines that were meant for defense earlier as well, now across the map. They're gunning down as much as they possibly can. Queens are now also desperately falling, and while the drones are now pulled off the line too, I really feel like this is going to be a lot more Zerglings coming up here for our Zerg. But the thing is, how many drone casualties will go down? 7 already, once again. bringing the total up to 13 at this point. And while the Zerglings will eventually clean this up, the value of this Terran army is not to be disregarded. Look at that. Units lost. 3,000 resources for our Zerg versus only 1,500 for our Terran player. Third CC. Where is it? Oh, okay, I was gonna say. It did finish up, of course. Couple more reinforcing Hellbats now coming up. Yeah, there's not really been any Roaches. There's not really been any Baneling play either. Zerg is just trying to hold on with a small group of Zerglings and Queens, and since the Queens ended up dying, Gumiho is like, wait a second, what if I just send more Hellbats across the map? I haven't seen any Banes, I haven't seen any Roaches, and while Roachborn is now coming up, he's gonna continue this Mech harass, and that's so cool. I do think that eventually Zerg once again will be able to clean this up, but look at that, the drones are currently going to town on one of those Hellbats. They're running desperately low as well. That is a 10, oh man, that is 10 additional workers going down there, or 13 additional drones going down there for the Zerg. And while the hatchery stays alive, that is a very substantial eco. And this is where that follow-up, right, of Gumiho is so strong. He did delay the medevacs a little bit. I don't know if that was a small accident by him, but these Thors, they're gonna continue their harassment for a little while longer. And what do you think that will force? Well, it's either gonna force a lot of Queens or a lot of Roaches. Right, maybe some Zerglings as well, but at the very least it will force units. Now Zerglings trying to make their way into the natural. They do back out of there, just barely in the nick of time. Somehow, some way though, Reynor did stay alive. I actually thought it looked rather grim for him. That Spinecrawler and the Spore were actually excellently timed by him as well. But here we go, this is the scary part, right? So now we see a Battle Mech army transition from a Cyclone Hellion Hellbat Marine into Hellion Hellbat Thors with medevacs. And remember that pickup micro I talked about in the previous game? Well, that's simply gonna be that we will see at this point here too in this TVZ here, because these Thors, they're gonna be able to provide a lot of value. Now Queens are gonna be very helpful. Hydra's now also coming up, which I do really like, but here we go. This could hurt so much. Now one of these medevacs actually already taking critical losses. They are busy healing up those Hellbats, so they are definitely providing some good value over there. But here we go, right? The fourth base has now been taken by our Zerg player. Medevac still staying alive, and these Thors, man, they deal so much damage. 4 and 5 kills respectively already, and they are not done just yet. Trying to get on top of it, but there we go. Boost forward, picking up those units as well. Apparently a couple of SCVs ended up dying on the other side of the map. I think that was due to the Zergling run by. So of course these players are microing several different angles at once, right? But you can see the amount of value that these units get from our Terran player. But once again, oh, he's trying to boost in. No, but that means that the medevac ends up dying there too. So actually, I was a little bit worried that that was going to be a game-ending move there. It turns out that really Gumiho decided to go for some pressure, but he ended up losing everything. And while he did damage the fourth base a little bit, and he did pick up a couple of Queens and Roaches and all that, that was definitely an engagement there that went in favor of our Zerg. Now we're once again going to be arriving in that mid-game, right? And that's really where this Zerg player shines. We see Muscular Awkwins now coming up here for Reynor, already being brave enough to move these Hydras out on the map, although I think that Gumiho spotted them. There we go. They're going to be able to roast them very easily. Of course, Blue Flame Hellion, great against light units. They're going to be able to make short work of those Hydras, and Hydras are very expensive. This is a low eco game at this point for our Zerg. Only 62 drones. He's actually trying to build up more. I quite like the position though that Gumiho has wriggled himself into, although I'm not sure about that Thor move out anymore. I thought it was going to be wonderful for him, but all things considered, that wasn't actually that amazing. Now I did use that time to secure a fourth base command center as well. And there's no denying that when you're playing Terran Mech and you're ahead supply-wise, you're a very happy Terran player. Great defense once again here by Reynor, showing us that he is a very tough, Zerg shell to crack. Might be very tempting to set all of those Roaches as soon as you see the Hellbats and the Hellions moving over to your third, but this is the key to his play. He leaves units in defensive postures all the time. Look, he never really balls up his units. If you're a Zerg player and you struggle against Terran harass, this is one of the keys that I would highly recommend you try and use. Split up your army. There's zero reason, if you have a lot of creep spread, to put them all in one big clump. Scan now in the main base, confirming that indeed Hive Tech has arrived. That means that these Vipers will come into play here in just a little bit. Vipers, of course, very, very potent. Blinding Cloud, Abduct, Parasitic Bomb, all very, very strong. Vikings were already being produced, though, for our Terran player. He's already got, how many is that? Yeah, Gumiho is already at 8 Vikings at this point, and there's more coming up, so I think he's going to be able to make short work of those Vipers if the engagement does go down, but it all comes down to the control of both of these players' armies. Gumiho is currently maxed out, just about to finish up +2 vehicle plating. His mech army is going to become stronger and stronger and stronger. Question is, does he have the capabilities right now of closing this game out? Judging by the amount of creep spread, I think he is very happy with the fact that he doesn't need to fight all too far away from that 4th base location. Hellbats desperately trying to make their way over there, but even with that big army moving across, still a couple of Hellbats will be deflected there by a few Roaches as well. Gotta be careful. Those siege tanks are in really powerful positions. Vikings trying to get the angle as well, and there we go. We see enough Vikings right now to one-shot those Vipers. One of them ended up dying there for practically free. Spire coming up here for a Zerg as well. He's likely trying to get maybe a couple of Corruptors, trying to deflect those Viking shots, but also more importantly switch towards Brute Lords in just a little bit. But the siege tanks are now inching closer. I love that position. Gumiho though now getting surrounded from every single angle. Question is there enough Zerg to deal with all of this Terran army? Hellbats moved forward right now. That means that all of a sudden the Roach Hydra Ball can close in on those siege tanks. Trying to get a Blinding Cloud on all of those tanks is our Zerg player here. But while Reynor gets a lot of value out of the army that he does have, I don't think he's got enough. Greater Spire now coming up, 17 Roaches coming up as well, but now that the Vikings have landed, I mean, they are a very good meat shield, right? They're going to be able to help push these siege tanks forward. Gumiho executing a brilliant slow push towards that 4th base location. He will force the evacuation from here, and I think that means the end of this 4th base as well. Great play there actually by Gumiho, playing that super slow, super methodical, showing us what he is capable of. And even though the Blinding Cloud's right, it really did shut down those siege tanks there for a while. I mean, yeah, there's no denying that Vipers are very expensive. Using them just for a single spell, usually not going to be worth it. Now, question is Gumiho going to continue the aggression? Or is he going to go home? He isn't maxed out anymore. His economy isn't massive. He did finish up the 5th command center, so he can expand if he really likes to here in just a little bit. Looks like he is going to scan forward and continue clearing out this creep. Clearing out the creep is what is most important when it comes to fighting these kind of armies, but don't kill your own... Dude, no, don't kill your own siege tank. That's bad micro. You don't want to go there. Anyway, right now this is 3 versus 5 base Terran. Not quite the situation that you want to be in, and while I like the fact that Reynor is valiantly holding on, right? One hero Hellbat will scout here. Well, it probably won't see the base, but I guess seeing the Roaches there is already enough confirmation. Greater Spire did just finish up as well. A couple of Greater Spire units would be great. Cyclone's not even being produced here for Gumiho. Getting quite a few of those as well. I guess he's got a lot of gas, so he may as well. Siege tanks now getting shots, though, over that little crevice, right? Over the ravine. Still not done with the slow push, though, right? Now the Cyclones are being supported here by those Liberators as well. So Cyclone Liberator is going to be the name of the game. Very interesting. It's going to obviously help with the slow push significantly. Now, Vipers are capable of abducting this army as well. Scans will confirm exactly where the Zerg army is located. I think he's going to try and see if he can clean up the other 4th base, the newly acquired one. Siege tanks immediately sieging up. Liberators trying to get a shot in. Beautiful zoning here by Gumiho. Now, it doesn't mean that the Zerg army is going to try and cycle around, but I don't know if there's enough, man. I don't think there is enough at this point. Now, I would really like to see... Yeah, he did confirm that there is a base over there. I would really like to see a couple of units moving over in that direction. Or maybe you could just go for the killing blow. Maybe that's why Gumiho is not cycling towards the top left-hand corner. Instead, he's trying to go for the killing blow right now. It's going to be pretty difficult to do so, in particular when you're sieging up right on top of one of those spore crawlers. There we go. I think he wanted to go for the killing blow there, leaving part of his army behind, but now also sending a lot of Cyclones up towards that high ground. Cyclones, of course, excellent at killing small armies in particular, and they're going to be able to make short work of that hatchery. Reynor, though, not liking the pace of this whatsoever. Gumiho is the one that gets to decide how things are going here. That means he's going to go ahead and send a lot of units across. He's realizing that this Terran army is indeed being reinforced by more and more units. That must mean that there are not going to be a lot of defenses. There we go. The Roaches have made their way across the map. They are picking up reinforcements left and right. And actually, this is now, wow, for the most part, forcing this Terran army to go all the way back home. I gotta say, I'm really quite impressed with the amount of respect that Gumiho is giving his opponent here. A couple of years ago, in these kind of games, they would just like box A move and sometimes even pull the workers just to close out the game. This is like a great show of respect. Maybe it's a little bit excessive in a way as well, but there's no denying he's ahead. He really does not want to lose from this position. He's seen the mid-game play, though, of his opponent, and he's really, you know, providing a lot of respect in that way as well to his opponent. Anyway, Gumiho just taking pretty much every single base on his, you know, his side of the map. That's not really the situation you want to be in. We have a scouting siege tank trying to figure out if there are any hidden bases here for our Zerg player. This is actually interesting, right? The economy has been heavily in favor here of Terran for a while, but Terran's having a really brutal time trying to close this one out. We are getting into this semi-death bowl army for Zerg as well. I mean, Brute Lords are extremely potent. There aren't that many Vikings anymore either. Blinding clouds on all of this army, and all of a sudden, I wonder if we're seeing a slight overextension here actually by Gumiho. He is pushing forward, trying to fight this army before the 4th base can finish up. 4th hatchery is likely gonna fall here in just a second, but all of a sudden, look at this. Reynor is actually making the best of this scenario. Now, there are still a lot of Terran units, though, moving across the map. They are also actually now cycling towards that 3rd base location. And while Gumiho did not quite get the kill on this 4th base, he's still dealing a lot of damage, and he's really knocking back this Zerg player's army continuously. Gumiho is mining so much more. He's dropping mules in all of the outer bases that he just secured as well. And while this Zerg army is scary, I mean, Reynor is running out of buildings to consume energy off of, and while he's desperately trying to see if he can deal some damage, I mean, I don't think he's really got enough. I like the idea of him staying in this game for as long as he has been so far, because there certainly is a chance. He did make it look as if he was still getting a lot of value there, and I guess getting a couple of free Thors is always really nice, but here comes the Terran army. It's moving across 188 supply versus 102. Very little mining here for our Zerg player, and even with the best of trades, I got a feeling that this Zerg player's numbers are going to dwindle here in just a little bit. Once again, though, a Thor will be abducted. It's target firing down those Brute Lords. And while it's super scrambly, right? This army of Zerg will likely hold on. But yeah, Reynor's army will, you know, it's not a very cost-efficient trade. And he is killing the majority of the units there for Gumiho, but there's really no way that Gumiho is gonna lose that game right then and there. I mean, the fact that Reynor is going toe-to-toe with one of the most established Terran players on the planet is already, you know, is already extremely impressive to me. The thing is, if you're still going to school full-time, right? Which, if you're in Italy and you're 15 years old, you're most definitely forced to go to school. Unless I'm absolutely crazy. Pretty sure that's a rule of the European Union, and it does make sense for a country to have its citizens go to school, right? But anyways, if you're going to school full-time, and you're also sort of like playing StarCraft 2 on the side, and you're going toe-to-toe against one of the GSL victors, right? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that really intense to imagine the skill level that Reynor could be at in a couple of years? Now, interestingly enough, it seems like a lot of players function really well when they are going to school full-time. Now, hold that thought though, we can talk about that for a very long time. I could probably dedicate an entire video to that, but Gumiho, he doesn't want this game to go the distance. Look at this. I love this. This is the way you win a GSL. You send a couple of SCVs across the map. You've been playing Mech all of the games so far. There is once again a spawning pool first here for Reynor, so that does make the defense a little bit easier, but Gumiho is going up against a Zerg player that does not know about the fact that there are already a couple of barracks being proxied out on the map. Second Overlord scouting forward, not really checking out these kind of, you know, ridges either. I would actually love it if he would send those in just a bit of a different location. He does see the SCV now coming up, might give him a bit of an inkling that something is a little bit out of the ordinary, although yeah, it's not really that easy to say. Only two barracks though, so not an all-out, all-in here for Gumiho, but definitely a push that is meant to deal damage. Reynor is now... oh my god. Well, technically it would make it easier, right, if you're forced to deal with a bunker rush when you go for a pool first, but the thing is now there's no creep on the low ground, meaning that, yeah, these bunkers are gonna go up in positions that are very difficult to kill. I think that these Marines are just simply going to rally towards a bunker. You don't even need that many of them right now if you are the Terran player. Already we see Gumiho following this up with 2 refineries. I wonder what the course of action is going to be here though, because, I mean, this is technically a full wall-off. Thing is though, Gumiho can just simply pop in and out of these bunkers and get his units from one side to the other. SCV is now hitting away at the hatchery here as well. This hatchery is more than likely gonna fall. It's a very small amount of Marines here for the time being, but it's very difficult to judge how you want to fight this if you are the Zerg player. Very smart decision making here for Gumiho. He can follow this up with a proxy factory if he really wants to. He could also just build the factory inside of his own base, but there you go. You see that? So he popped the SCVs into the bunker, then moved them over to the other side, and guess what is a really safe spot to just simply repair these bunkers from? It is going to be the back end of this location. He's purposefully not repairing right now, just to make sure that he doesn't waste any unnecessary resources. He thinks that the base is already going to go down. Just in case though, may as well go ahead and touch it up, but he did prioritize the production of that factory there. And with that hatchery going down, I think he's just simply gonna... Well, he may actually sit here for a little while longer, but I think he's gonna be able to salvage those bunkers, get on out of there, and live to fight another day. He is forcing this sort of like a Ravager all-in though. I mean, the thing is, obviously, you do sacrifice a lot of economy in order to get these units to move across the map as well. And you are forcing the Zerg into a really powerful position here out of one base only. The question is, how well can Reynor follow this up? Those corrosive biles are already getting a lot of value. He's now going to finish droning the one base. These bunkers are connected, so these biles will also connect. I think that Gumiho will be forced out of there. A couple of Marines apparently have been rerouted back towards the Terran side of the map. They will pick up an Overlord for their troubles, but there we go. Double salvage there on the bunkers. Looked like one did get salvaged there. This is a pretty scary armor though. Reynor now moving across the map. There is that starport coming up. I wonder if he's going to make the switch around with the factory in just a little bit to get that tech lab going, to potentially go for a Banshee, which will ultimately shut this one down. Instead, Gumiho looks like he wants the defense against this one base forced all in from the Zerg. Or at least like a very aggressive push with like a siege tank and then maybe a medevac, some pickup micro. That's going to be very difficult. Actually, these 4 Ravagers can definitely deal a lot of damage. I love this. Gumiho going for the base over at the 3rd base location rather than the natural. This is not a place that Terran will really check, or Zerg will really check at this point. Particularly not with all of those units getting shut down. Thing is, you can't really siege up this tank. Sieging up the tank here is very, very risky. Corrosive biles can land very easily, but actually the value that these Ravagers are providing though, it's kind of insane. Beautiful pickup so far, but it does open up the front door. Now there is no metabolic boost, so no chances really of Zerglings running by this location either. There's actually a supply block right now for Gumiho. Yes, Gumiho did not quite calculate in losing one of these depots. And while Gumiho is now going to go for a bit of a move out across the map once again, he's now forced to cancel whatever he was producing, start up a reactor as well as a tech lab on those unit-producing structures. Now, going for the 3rd command center, I guess he relies on this CC to finish up in order to actually get supply once again, to start building more units. But very interesting, curious decision here for Gumiho, right? Bit of a panic mode there when he added on those supply depots. I guess the ones here near the front were very close to dying as well. If only Reynor would have known about the 3rd CC, he would have actually been in a really good spot because he could have finished that one off as well. But all things considered, I don't really mind the position that Reynor is in. Right? He seemed to be in a terrible spot there. He is forced into... Well, this is really where a player can show how good he is, right? This forced him in a really weird position. No Zergling speed. No standard 3rd base. This is the personal... Like, this is the type of game that I personally really struggle at when I play StarCraft. I mean, you guys know I play a lot of StarCraft over at the live stream. For those of you curious, I stream Monday through Saturday, 2 to 8 p.m. CEST, so I stream a lot. But these are the kind of games where I personally struggle. I feel like this is the kind of game where you can really show your skill from both players, really. I mean, it's really difficult to play your non-standard game. Anyway, Gumiho has secured now the base over at the 3rd, as well as the one in the natural. So his economy is going to be booming here in just a bit. Supply-wise, though, there's no denying that Zerg is currently ahead. Matter of fact, moving across the map, it does look like we may very well be forced into a biological-based army. Yeah, Gumiho going for mech in game number 1 and game 2. Now transitioning towards bio instead, but this is quite a substantial amount of Roaches and Ravagers. We see Glio Reconstitution as well as +1 missile coming up. That means that this Zerg army is smelling blood. It is ready to close out the game right here and there. And look at this, right? There's very little army remaining here. I think that Gumiho made the assumption that the 3rd of the Zerg would immediately be taken, but instead... Oh my god, dude. Are you kidding me? Instead, we're seeing this 2-base push from Reynor, Going off of a relatively small economy, he does have a very menacing army, and of course Roach Ravager is extremely potent. Already forcing a lift up on that command center before any fighting whatsoever. Bunkers now going down to the front, but there's really... I mean, there's only 9 Marines, I guess, at this point. Still a very difficult engagement to make, though. Zerk does not really have the value, trying to get the range on those... Oh my god, he's gonna land the corrosive biles on at least one of those tanks. It will go down here eventually as well. These bunkers, though, providing a lot of beefy protection here for this Terran army as well. But the corrosive biles, they're dealing so much damage. The majority of the Terran army here falls. 12 more SCVs are picked off as well. All of the last siege tanks are gone. Oh my god, are you kidding me? Reynor just managed to do that. After getting bunker rushed? That was a very slow, methodical play that he executed here. I do feel like Gumiho played a little bit too greedy, but yeah, look at that. Reynor managed to clean that one up. Wonderful game there. Alrighty, so that brings us to the potential for match point right now for our young Zerk player. I'm really impressed with the way that he's playing this, though. Incredible plays so far against, once again, right, I just looked it up. Against Gumiho is the current rank 3 Terran player on the planet. It's just barely behind Innovation. Maru is first, Innovation is second. Maru is quite far ahead of everyone else, it seems like. But Maru is first, Innovation is second, and Gumiho is, you know, breathing in the neck of Innovation as far as his statistical ranking goes on a League leg. Very impressive. I mean, it's definitely true that he's a world-class Terran player, but so far, Reynor seems to be making short work of him. And the thing is, in that previous game, he didn't even scout the bunker rush until it was already moving into his natural, right? We gotta keep that one in mind. I mean, Dreamcatcher, the map that we were on, it's a map that was only recently added to the map pool, I mean, about a week or so ago. And the thing is, players are still trying to figure out the paths that they need to send their overlords in. I mean, I can imagine, for example, those ridges that are surrounding the 3rd and the 4th base are probably ridges that you want to start scouting if you're a Zerk player, and I can imagine that Reynor is likely going to send them over to that direction. Rather than sending his second overlord across the map, right? I can imagine he's gonna start scouting those locations instead, just to make sure that he can see any kind of incoming aggression. But that's one of those things that will be solved with time. For example, you can see him already sending out his overlord right now in a very deliberate path, trying to figure out if there's any kind of cheese. I mean, this is a common location for bunkers to go up, or for barracks rather to go up. This is a common location right over here. Some players like... Basically, there's a couple of locations where you can go ahead and proxy barracks on a map like this, and since we obviously had acid plant in the previous map pool, it's much more common. Anyway, Gumiho this time around not messing around, right? Look at that, going for the SCV scout even, just to be a 100% safe. He knows that Reynor is on match point. If he ends up winning this map, he will win the entire series, so that does mean that he needs to play ultimately safe. Now, I want to know what is going through Gumiho's mind right now, right? I mean, he went toe-to-toe in several of those games. It seemed like the Italian Zerk just simply had his number, right? He was just simply outplaying him in some of those moments. And while they were very well fought battles from Gumiho, ultimately, he did end up losing those games. Man, that was a really long jump. Did you see that? Anyway, 3rd base drone will now be scouted here as well. It will force out the extractor here for the time being, but Gumiho does want to scout whether or not anything weird is going on in that natural. Single drone now left in that gas geyser. I think that does mean that Reynor is planning to go for that much more economical focused game once again. Quite surprised he's trying to go for the 3rd over here. The majority of the Zerk players will go for the 3rd over on that side instead. I wonder if it's a bait. Yeah, look at that. Oh my god. Do you think he sent out that drone there deliberately? Because that means now the Queens can shoo away the Reaper. Reaper cannot move up into the main base. He can take the 3rd over at the much more orthodox location. And this opens up the opportunity for the Lynx to deal some damage on the other side. I don't really know exactly if that's the reason, but I do think it's really cute. Anyway, it does look like one drone there does end up going down. Gumiho ended up killing that single worker there. Zerklings now arrived on the other side of the map though, just barely before Zerkling speed is done. And while Reynor did get a little bit of value there, I mean, he's now splitting them up as well. I think that these Zerklings' days are numbered. Well, one of them apparently is left as a survivor. He gets to tell the rest of the swarm what went down on the other side of the map. We see that 1-1-1 style once again from Gumiho. And if you're a Terran player and you want to play something very safe, something very solid, pay attention to the build that Gumiho is going for right now. It looks like it's going to be a bio-based build. Or maybe he's just going to try and fake that to the Overlord. Look at this. This is another recent development. Please cancel it after this Overlord dies. I think that's his plan. I don't know if it is, but it might very well be. So, The thing is, he's gonna play this very safe. He doesn't want to lose against Reynor, obviously, at this point. Overlord goes down. Does he cancel? Oh, dude, no way. That's so cheeky. So this actually is really tricky. Look, it forces Reynor into the Baneling Nest because he's assuming he's going up against Bio. He saw the green light on the barracks in that tech lab, meaning that he's not going to go for a Roach Warren, but instead he goes for the Baneling Nest. We see the switch out right now into an armory as well, so I think that Gumiho plans on playing Mech. Banelings against Mech can be very useful, but more often than not, you're still looking for that Roach Warren. Now, apparently, Reynor... Whoa! What did he just figure out? Oh! Are you kidding me? Oh, no way! That is so unlucky there for Gumiho. There is like a half second or so during which you can still sort of see what's going on. He saw the fact that after the Overlord died... For about, you know, I guess like the 200 milliseconds or something, he saw the fact that apparently the barracks was lifted up and the starport as well, so he knows they're being switched around. He knows that Stimpack is cancelled, and because of that, he goes for the Roach Warren instead of the... Ah, man. That is very unfortunate there for Gumiho. It's one of those things, you gotta wait for about a split second. Just in case. Now, a couple of Hellions making their way towards the third base location as well. There's no Zerglings available here. They're definitely going to be able to pick up a couple of those worker kills. Now, also, a Reaper coming up. Trying to deal some damage here, too. 4 or 5 drones here so far. Zerglings will also have to pay for this with their lives. Matter of fact, now dropping off a couple of those Hellions over at the main base. This is completely unscouted, and this can definitely deal a huge amount of damage. Great player by Gumiho, trying his best to trick his opponent, and while at this point, he doesn't know exactly that, you know, it has been scouted brilliantly by our Zerg player. I mean, he just barely, you know, lifted up those structures a little bit too quickly. Doesn't really matter because he's already in a very, very good spot here as far as his worker count goes. Banshee now, of course, moving across the map as well. Now, this is a telltale sign that, of course, there is no more bio play coming up here for our Terran player. But there's no denying, though, that these units are getting a lot of value. And how many workers was that in total? 12 drones in exchange for, like, I think 8. Yeah, I think that's 8 or so. 8 or so Hellbats, and I guess 2 Medivacs as well. But you got a lot of Roaches and Queens and Zerglings and whatnot for his troubles as well. Gumiho gonna continue with his battle mech style. So this is what he feels really comfortable with. Now adding on more and more factories. Third command center just finished up as well. We see more and more continued Banshee play here too. I would love it if he would actually get the speed upgrade for the Banshees. This is something that Maru has been playing a while. There we go though. Banshees nibbling away at these, or I guess shooting away, right? They don't really nibble very much. I guess they nibble with missiles on all of those Roaches. Roaches taking a huge amount of damage already, and this is really softening up this Zerg army, forcing a lot more defensive units here for our Zerg player. Still, I think there's going to be enough here for Zerg to deal with all of this. One Viking trying to help out as well, and Gumiho on the retreat path is going to try and get a couple more pot shots off on those Roaches, but eventually he will be forced to go back home. Alright, so we're now in the mid game. Early game has been dealt with. I would say the early game definitely did go in favor there of Gumiho, but this is the point in the game where Reynor shines. I would say the next 5 or so minutes is where he's extremely potent. Let's see what he's going to do. First off, he sends a small group of Roaches across the map while these Banshees are still cleaning up creep, which, by the way, I think is a wonderful decision. Really nicely done. +1 missile, just about to finish up as well. Is Glio Reconstitution done? Yes, it is indeed done. We see now a Spire coming up. Very interesting. Muta play, of course. I mean, the one thing he did realize is that there is very little... by the way, the 4th CC definitely will be forced to get cancelled here. But the thing is, Spire play is going to be very strong against a player who doesn't have a lot of anti-air. And so far, I mean, we haven't seen any missile turrets here. We haven't really seen a lot of Thors either. I mean, we saw the Thors with the drop, but this is more like a Cyclone-focused army. I'm assuming here that Mutas may very well be able to deal a lot of damage. Roaches, though? Oh my god, man. And maybe actually the Spire is just a response to the amount of Banshees here. Very interesting. We see 4 Banshees at this point. That is most definitely an army that is worth, you know, being scared of. You can't really be you know, too careful when it comes to fighting these. Now, one of them will end up going down. I don't know where the 4th Banshee is. So that one's getting a bit of a touch-up right now. In a magical way, the SCV apparently uses its drill on the ground, and somehow, some way, the Banshee gets repaired. That's technology right there for you. Next level science. But here we go. 10 Mutalisks are coming up. Now, Mutas, they're one of these units that are easy to get countered, by all races. All races have excellent counters against mutas. However, if they can get out of control, they deal so much damage. And one thing they do get you is map control. You get so much map control when you're the one playing mutas. Basically, as soon as mutas are out, the opponent will be forced to stay home for a long time, because if you leave, the mutas are going to swoop in and kill a lot of your stuff. Hellions trying to kill a couple of those workers. They will be deflected by Roaches now too, but here we go. There's no missile turret. Well, there is one missile turret over there. There are some missile turrets. I'm not entirely sure what the decision on positioning them is. I guess it might be just in case of burrowed Roaches or something along those lines. But at this point, right, what is the Terran player going to do? He can't really move across. He's going to be forced into Thor play. Immediately starts up 3 of those. But while this is all going on, right, the Zerg player is growing his army. Considering the early game, oh, once again, brilliant pickup there. Considering the early game, though, I was a little bit worried there for our Zerg player. But Gumiho is starting to deal a lot of damage now, too. He's actually dealing with these very, very nicely. Siege tanks now also forced to siege up. They're in the middle of that mineral line, but they will be able to shoo away those units. Banshees actually are dealing a lot of damage. They might very well be able to get a kill on the 4th, although Zerg is currently occupied on the other side of the map. Really making it hard for this Terran player to focus on these Banshees. Cyclones now dropping off in the back of that mineral line, getting a lot of drone kills here, and in the meantime, the Roaches are going to town here as well. Thors are now coming out, so that does mean that these are the last of the mutas, but the mutas did really make it difficult for the Zerg player to max out. 4th base, though, was picked up. A great move there by Gumiho, still staying on top of things. Luckily for Gumiho, he did already finish up the 4th command center as well, which is going to be critical, because essentially right now, economically speaking, he has been knocked back a lot. So while the mutas didn't necessarily deal game-ending damage, they did provide a lot of value, and more importantly for Zerg here, a lot of time. Gumiho could go for a move out across the map right now. I would actually like it if you repaired up these Metafacts first. There are quite a lot of queens available, and obviously there might still be some stray mutas as well. Regardless, a lot of Roaches, though, are ready to once again pounce on this opportunity. How many siege tanks are there? I am not seeing a single siege tank over here. As a matter of fact, there are absolutely 0. One thing mutas do, of course, is also force out those Thors. Whenever you see Thors on that production tab, you know that there's not going to be any siege tanks for a little while. 19 SCVs ended up dying there. And while we did see some brilliant pickup micro there by Gumiho as well, I feel like Reynor is once again slamming his opponent. This is what I mean with the mid game, right? This is where he shines. If he wouldn't have lost the 4th base, Reynor would have been in a dominating lead. Instead, he is now, you know, in an advantage, most definitely. But he's definitely not at a game-ending moment here whatsoever. Cyclones, Hellions moving across the map. Great move here by our Terran once again. He's sacrificing the Hellions. They are replaceable. Cyclones, though, not so much. Look how much damage they do. Couple of the reinforcing army now, though, trying to get the surround on his Roach base force as well. Well, we thought we had a Zerg sandwich there. It turned out to be a Terran sandwich instead. Another time, this base will be killed, actually. Not a cancel there. That was a kill. So that's 300 minerals down the drain and the cost of the drone as well. Great player by Gumiho, though. Considering he did not know about the mutas and he didn't really have any defense ready for the mutas, he handled that wonderfully. It's very easy to lose the entirety of the game to this Roach muta-based force. Because as soon as you start switching to Thors, life becomes very tricky. Hellions waiting for the run-by, whereas the majority of the Terran army is now going over towards the newly acquired 4th base. One Roach still going to town here. I think that reinforcing siege tanks are going to be able to make short work of that. Siege tanks now sieging up in very nice positions, though. And here we go. Hellbats moving forward, or Hellions moving forward, going after that mineral line. Great mover by Gumiho. Attacking at 2 angles every single time, and then just simply retreating when he feels like it's been enough. Gets 9 drone kills for his troubles, then once again gets on out of there. He probably would have preferred to kill on the 4th hatchery, but didn't get that. But he did get a lot of worker kills, plus he secured his own 4th base once again. And when you're playing Terran Mech and you're playing the even amount of bases game, you know that you're in a good spot. There's no planetary fortresses here, though. Interestingly enough, Gumiho is going to be forced to split his army into several smaller chunks. Not really what you usually want to do with Terran Mech, so he does plan on maxing out here in just a bit, and I do think he's going to be able to get to that point. Reynor, though, only just now going up towards the Hive. We're 14 minutes into the game, roughly, and that's roughly when he will finish up the Hive as well. He's just been playing Roach Ravager Muta. Roach Ravager Muta is great, but not against maxed out Terran Mech. Couple of Vipers immediately being constructed here. We don't see a Greater Spire or anything along those lines yet, although the Spire, of course, can be morphed into a Greater Spire here in just a second. Liberator's going to be very, very helpful here for just keeping this Zerg player at bay. It's going to be difficult to move out as long as those Liberators are out on the map. You can provide so much value just by simply harassing the Terran or the Zerg player. They are one of those units that are relatively easy to counter, but they require a lot of attention. Liberation zones now being set up apparently on the most vulnerable locations, and this is what I like. Look at that. Sensor towers are coming up here. They're overlapping somewhat, but they are giving this Terran player a lot more value. The one barracks here on the left-hand side as well, providing that sight of whether or not there's a Zerg army waiting at the front door. So you can really position your army before it goes up. And look, not all of the siege tanks are sieged up. That's a smart move here by the Terran player too, so you can easily maneuver them wherever the Zerg player is going to be pushing from. Greater Spire now coming up here though for our Zerg. Terran is now currently close to maxing out, going for the Smart Servos upgrade. Allows these Hellions to move into Hellbats a little bit easier, and of course Vikings to transition towards their air and ground mode a little bit quicker. Once again, a couple of Hellions though, brute forcing their way into that mineral line. 8 more drones end up dying. Ooh, that one was hunting for the final hit there. That would have been a lot there. But Zerg at this point can quite comfortably replace any lost workers. Only 66 drones though. That's barely enough to saturate 3 bases, let alone 5. There's going to be a lot of income here, I guess, as far as gas goes for a Zerg player. But not really a whole lot when it comes to more sustainable armies. Alright, so let's see. Looks like we may very well be transitioning from the mid game into that ultra late game army. And usually, I'm going to have to give the advantage here to the Mech base player. I mean, Mech is just so very potent in the late game. Starports are coming up right now as well. We see more missile turrets. Continuing the turtle style is Gumiho, and I think that's the correct choice. Let the Zerg player make whatever they want, because you know your army is going to be stronger here in the grand scheme of things. Now, the only thing I don't really like is the fact that he's only on +1 armor right now. That's the one downside of going for that single armory play. Apparently a couple of drones once again ended up dying there, by the way, but that's the one downside of having that single armory play. You don't get your armor upgrades nearly as quickly. Here we go, though. Terran finally making a move out across the map. It is now fully maxed out. Gumiho's army is an absolute force. And this is a Roach Ravager, Viper-based army for our Zerg. This base is definitely in a lot of trouble. Zerg would like to go for a bit of a surround, but so far I don't see it happening. Thors do get abducted there. Parasitic Bomb on the majority of those Vikings as well. Wonderfully done here. But you gotta keep in mind, there are so many units still in the back waiting to shoot at all of these Roaches, Hydras, and Ravagers. Still, actually, there's a lot of value here that Reynor is getting out of this army. Still, he does manage to clean up a big chunk of this force. 22 reinforcing Roaches are coming up. And actually, I thought that fight would go heavily in favor of Gumiho, but I think I was mistaken. It seems like, yeah, look at that. The Roach Hydra army does push this one back. Viper's providing a lot of support there as well. There wasn't really a fight you would imagine going wrong there for the Terran, but the thing is, a lot of those siege tanks were forward, and then a bunch of them were sitting in the back doing a whole lot of nothing. That means that all of a sudden we see a massive counterattack, a fight that would go heavily in favor there of Gumiho if he would have microed that slightly differently. Instead, now he's got to deal with a massive amount of Zerg at his front door. Third base taking a lot of damage, 14 SCVs fall in just a matter of seconds. Roaches and Hydras jumping all of the reinforcing Thors as well as siege tanks. Hellbats being picked up right as they spawn as well. Now Vikings being landed as well, and while it does look like eventually this Zerg army will be cleaned up, it is not without a massive amount of losses either. That definitely just turned the tides really quickly. It is easy to discredit Roach Hydra, right? But if your opponent just simply overextends a little bit, I mean, once again, we had so many siege tanks sitting on that high ground while half of the army was dying over here. They were waiting there. I think that Gumiho should have backed up a little bit more. Instead, Reynor saw that his opponent was overextending and he jumped on the opportunity. That means that Gumiho is once again going to be forced into this base building situation. He's going to go up against the player that's playing Roach Hydra Ravager. Not really an army composition that I would really, give a lot of longevity, I suppose. Usually not a composition that you see other top-of-the-line players play. But he's making it work somehow, some way. Most players will transition towards Brute Lords, Vipers. Wait, did I say Vipers twice? I think I said Vipers. But they will be transitioning towards like Infestors, Vipers, Corruptors, Brute Lords, late game type of units. But look at these Abducts. They're providing so much value. Dude, I actually think that... Oh, are you kidding me? Reynor is actually doing this. It looks as if he's beating one of the greatest Terran players on the planet in a legitimately well-fought best-of-5 where we had Cheese, we had Macro. And while Gumiho is trying to mech it happen, he's not meching it happen so far. Sorry, I have to include a mech pun every once in a while. Now, this is not game over yet. The thing is, the supply counts are kind of lopsided. Roach, Hydra, Ravager, it's very strong. But, I mean, army supply-wise, Zerg players ahead, but Roaches take 2 supply each. I don't think they're really worth 2 supply. I think we can mostly consider them like, you know, 1.5 supply or so as far as their actual army value goes. It does mean that you max out on an army that looks very strong, but usually ends up dying very easily as well. So you gotta be careful. Siege tanks provide a lot of value. Then again, there's not that many siege tanks actually remaining. 4 siege tanks here in total. Yeah, it's not really that many. You would usually expect to be at least at double the amount. Gumiho actually scrambling by. He does have the fusion core. I wish we would see battle cruisers as well, but I'm afraid it's just going to be for the advanced ballistics upgrade. That's the Liberator range right there. I would love to see some battle cruiser action. I do think they are really good, but Abduct is just simply going to make short work of those. Abduct them into the Hydras, and that is going to be the end of the battle cruiser. Battle cruiser is very expensive. I would love to see them be a part of this game as well, but you know what I would really like to see Gumiho do right now? I would actually love it if he made a couple of couple more siege tanks first off, but then also some Ravens. Anti-armor missile seems to be so really powerful. Smart servos though, allowing these Hellbats to move from Hellion form into Hellbat form really quickly. Ooh, once again, couple of abducts coming up, trying to pick up whatever. Getting a lot of value out of this Roach Ravager army, though. There's still no plan to transition towards anything else. I mean, he made the Greatest Spire a long time ago, but there's no Brute Lords. None of that going down. I guess this is more or less like a soft contain here by our Zerg player, trying to just simply make it so that Terran players can't expand anymore. He's like, okay, you can have the base on the low ground. You can have the 3rd, I guess, or I guess the 4th in this particular case. But I'm not going to allow you to expand anywhere else. Continuously scouting out those locations to make sure that this Terran player is not gonna take another base without Zerg knowing about it. I would have really expected to see Corruptors on that production tab right now. But it's not the case. Right? You would imagine that Corruptors would be the way to go with right now. He's still upgrading the flyer upgrades as well. Plus the ground now coming up here for Reynor too. Is he already at... No, he doesn't have any melee upgrades, but he does have +3 missile. Still, this Terran player, though, is becoming more and more powerful, right? The longer that this goes on, great micro there by Gumiho, landing those Vikings, but the longer that this goes on, the stronger that this Terran army will become once again as well. We now see another command center coming up, and this Siege Tank Liberator army has a lot of potential. Siege Tank Liberator Viking is extremely difficult to kill once it maxes out. One counter potentially is going to be Swarm Host and Brute Lords and all that, but with the amount of Hellbats and Vikings, I think that... the Terran is in a pretty good spot as far as that goes. More Vipers are coming up, though, once again. Vipers providing a lot of value. There's already 4 Vipers out. We're going into 7 Vipers. Huh. That seems to be a lot more than you would normally expect. Then again, they have been providing a lot of value. It's the one spellcaster that Reynor has been going for a lot. But here we go. We see this slow push beginning from the low ground base and likely moving over towards that other side of the map here in just a little bit. Terran is gonna now cycle over a couple of, or I guess round out a couple of those Hellions, trying to go after the newly acquired gold base of the Zerg. They will be able to pick up those drones before anything. I mean, Blue Flame almost one-shots a spine crawler at this point. That's when you know that there are a lot. But here we go. Immediately while that's going on, Reynor decides to jump on the opportunity to deal some damage at the 4th base location of Gumiho. They're gonna be able to power through this, but of course the Liberator count is a very high. And yeah, they're going to be able to make short work of that army in just a couple of seconds. Still though, the majority of the Zerg army is now also over at this, I guess, 5th base location. Siege Tank will be abducted here as well. Blinding Cloud on the majority of this army, including the Zerg players as well. Hydras were cleaned up very, very rapidly. Definitely an engagement there in favor of Gumiho. At the same time, Roaches are making a way across the map. Starting to think that this is falling apart here a little for our Zerg, though. You will be able to pick up 2 siege tanks, but this planetary fortress can be repaired almost indefinitely with the surround of all of those Terran units. Still, the amount of army remaining for Gumiho is not that big. There are a few Liberators, and sure, these Roaches cannot shoot up. The majority of the Hydras ended up going down there as well. The reinforcing Zerg army is picking it up from every single last angle. And while you do have the ranged upgrade here with advanced ballistics, yeah, look at that. Oh my god, Reynor managed to kill that Terran army once again. A fight that could have easily gone in favor of Gumiho. But let me get this straight. Reynor, our 15-year-old Zerg player from Italy, just ended up beating Gumiho, the rank 3 Terran player on the planet, a GSL code as Victor, in a best-of-5 series in a 3-1 fashion. Incredible. I mean, if you didn't already have Reynor on your radar, maybe I was casting this a little bit biasedly, or a little bit biased in his direction. But the thing is, man, like, he's becoming so good, and I'm just so excited to see him play. A couple of years ago, it was unheard of for non-Korean players to even win a game against, you know, established pros in Korea. These days, it seems like it is, you know, almost becoming the new standard. Incredible play there by Reynor. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, okay? Do not forget to smile. And I'll see you in the next one.